Hi, my name is Rod Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I know you're going to get incredible value from the rock star that we're interviewing today. His name is Swapnil Agarwal. And Swapnil, I don't even know where to start. He's the founding and managing principal of Nitya Capital and CEO of its sister company, Karya Capital or Karya Management, and they've got over $2.5 billion in assets. Yes, that's with a B. Over 20,000 doors, and there's no question we're going to get incredible value from this conversation with him today. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your show, Rod.
Well, thank you for saying that. So, I think a great place to start in this conversation would I know you're an immigrant like myself, and I'd love to hear your story, just the highlights of how you got from immigrating to this country to 20,000 doors and an incredible track record here. So please tell us what it took to get here.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. It's a great honor to be on the show, Rod. I immigrated to America from India when I was 15 years old. I had just completed my 9th grade in India, and I moved to the United States, to Houston, Texas in 1996. And I grew up in a very small town in India, and had a very came from very humble beginnings. Coming to America was definitely an eye-opener, just for any other immigrant it is. But what I quickly realized is that America is a symbol of capitalism. America is probably the only country in the world that provides that platform for people who have the visions, who have the dreams, who have the hustle, who have that hard work mentality that you can succeed. And I can't think of any other country in this world that will give you that platform, that can give a platform to a young immigrant or a guy with humble beginnings. If you have the right intentions, if you have good intentions, if you're willing to put in the work, the country will give you the wings to be successful. And that's a classic story that I feel fortunate to be part of. As a young immigrant, obviously we all face a lot of challenges. The culture is very different, but people are very nice. People are very straight to the point. I grew up in India, and I was actually thinking about it earlier this week is, in America, everybody's so straightforward. They say it the way they think about it, things, right? Mm-hmm. Growing up in India or UK or, people are so used to saying things in a roundabout ways that you don't exactly know what people are saying. So coming to America, that was a very, very, eye-opener revelation, because you don't have to be afraid of asking questions. If you don't understand something, you ask the question. Whereas growing up in, developing countries like India, they discourage you to ask questions because you're supposed to know everything. But America, here I noticed things where even the professors going to school or, during in business, even the top CEOs just ask questions. If they're not sure about something you're willing to ask, you can ask a question. Nobody will say that's a dumb question. There's never a dumb question. So coming back to my story, I worked very hard. I came on an immigrant visa. I didn't know the visa status in America. Obviously, it's a big challenge to, come to America as an immigrant if it doesn't have the permanent residency. That is a big challenge that I would say millions of people living in America face till date. Anyways, overcoming that obstacle, working hard, so passing out pizza flyers in the same apartment complexes that we own today, getting
involved. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow.
Working very hard and, paying my way through school. And my parents were, young, they were in their mid-40s when they came. That was a bigger of a culture shock for them because they grew up in India and they worked all their life. And coming for them at age 45 was a pretty big culture shock for them. But they stuck through. They believed in me and my capabilities. And I was able to, pass out of high school and fortunate enough to go to University of Texas at Austin. And, look, my only objective in life, coming from the background I wanted to make as much money as possible. And, I said, okay, which career field I can choose that will allow me to do that? And I chose finance. because people had told me the only way to make money out of college is to become an investment banker. And I was fortunate enough to become an investment banker in one of the most premier investment banking shops in Houston. Went through my analyst program for 3 years. It was in oil and gas. I didn't think that I could add too much value in oil and gas. So I said, okay, let me go into real estate. So I got a position in a private equity fund, and I moved to Hong Kong for 7 years, invested all across the Pacific. One of the best things to, the experience that I got from working in a private equity shop was what it taught me is working for financial institutions. All we're doing is providing capital. And we're looking for these solid operators, these owner operators who not only are sophisticated with how the numbers work, how the returns work, but are very, very hands-on in terms of when it comes to the property level information. The people who are willing to roll up the sleeves and exactly know what's going on at the properties. So in my experience, and as a lot of private equity institutions find out, you run into either a very sophisticated, high-class operator who will talk the language, will talk the finance language, or you get into a local mom and pop guys who are great at what they do at the property level, but they don't have the background, the finance background to talk about ROI and IRRs. So I said, why don't I become one of that? Why don't I be the combination of that? Because, look, I grew up, passing out pizza flyers, working at my dad's convenience store. So I knew how the business was run. And then I had the finance background. So I came back in 2013, came back from Hong Kong, bought our first property in Houston in 2014 of March. It was a 160-unit apartment complex in one of the worst locations of town. And I said, look, I'm going to try and manage this asset myself. So I acted like a fundraiser or a lawyer preparing company agreement. I was an accountant making monthly financials. And I was the property manager and assistant manager trying to collect rent from a very, very rough tenant base. And it taught me a lot about humility. It taught me a lot about, how to, conduct a business. And to be very honest, Rod, for the first 3 months when I was doing this, I thought it was the worst mistake of my life. Here I am, sitting in a class D minus, the best way to put that apartment complex, trying to collect rent, fearing for my life. The next moment I might get shot. Coming from a high rise sitting in Hong Kong, a nice cushy finance job, sitting in this kind of environment, I thought it was the worst mistake. And, when I bought the property, it was on paper 90%. I take over at 65% actually. I mean, it taught me a lot about, okay, what to do and how to run an asset and what to believe, what not to believe, what kind of due diligence need to do. But, I stuck with it. The biggest thing I did was to invest in people. I hired the right people. I kept investing in building a team because I was foreseeing the growth. I didn't believe in taking shortcuts. I didn't believe I'm only going to own 5 properties. My goal was always, I'm going to have 100 properties. I'm going to have 100,000 units. People used to laugh at me. I said, that's fine. You keep that laughter, you keep that sarcasm, and people talk to you and let it
use it. You use it, right?
Yeah, you use it. Keep that as a motivation, keep that as a fire to fuel you later. So, from there to here now, fortunate enough to have 20,000 units, 1 million square foot of office space, about 300,000 square feet of retail mixed use space. We have a single family platform which buys and flip rental homes. So we're lucky to be here. And again, my vision is that this is still a second inning of a 9-inning ball game. We have a long ways to go.
Well, yeah. Well, listen, if you don't mind, I'd like to drill down on a few things because,
absolutely,
from handing out pizza flyers to 20,000 doors. Now, there's no question. I think it's fairly obvious that finance background and that finance experience, I know that you were involved in $3 billion worth of transactions globally, where real estate transactions, that was an incredible pre-frame for what you did here. Because, one of the things I thought about when I heard how many doors you have and what little bit I knew of your story is, how did you raise all that capital? How much capital have you raised so far in your lifetime? Do you know that number?
I think it's close to 500 million of equity. 500
million you've raised. So I want to, well, let's just go there right now. I want to talk about some other things like your team and things like that. But did you use a lot of private equity in your deals, or was it one-on-one investors? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's so funny you asked me that question, Rod, because till date, I think to myself, how did I ever raise that much money? Right. And I say, why did anybody try to, decided to trust me and put their money and hard-earned savings in our platform. So I'll start from the first project. That was a $4 million project, 160 units.
Right.
You got to, again, getting a loan was a bigger challenge because here you are, my net worth was, 300,000. I mean, that's my lifetime savings at that time. And here I am trying to get a $2.5 million loan, trying to, raise $1.5 million of equity. And I went through banks to banks and I had to take a lot of rejections. Finally, I got a local bank who gave me a loan with a co-signer. And again, I'm grateful for having great friends. One of my friends who comes from a good background, and he helped by co-signing on the loan. So I got the loan. And then I have my other partner, Vivek, who's my partner in the business. He had a lot of connections. So we made the rounds. I pitched the idea to friends and family and went around in a couple of his colleagues in New York. And somehow we were able to scrape through and raise $1.4 million. And that was about 15 investors. And till date, Rod, I have never hired any broker dealers. I have never paid anybody to raise any capital for me. Everything I've raised is all words of mouth. It's all references. It's all track record because we are very cash flow focused. We are telling our investors 10% cash and cash quarterly distributions, and we've never missed a quarterly distribution. So making sure you keep that going. People need a place to live. People are sitting on cash. There's only few avenues that people can invest. There's stock market, there's bonds, but real estate should be a big portion of your investment. They just don't know how to do it. Right. And I guess we came at the right time where people took that leap of faith. We had great track record. So the first property we bought, we were able to recycle that capital within 6 months and double everybody's money. So that people gave a lot of confidence and they referred their other friends and family. So we started off with high net worth, friends and family capital. And, as you would have it, there's a natural cycle in anybody's company when it comes to capital raising. Last 2 years, we've taken a lot of money from private equity institutions. We have done, family offices.
Family offices. I was going to ask you about that as well. Yeah. I'm having Richard Wilson talk to my mastermind here in a couple of weeks. You know who he is, I'm sure, with the family office environment. Yes. But so, wow. 500 million. Holy cow. So you talked about a partner it's interesting. I just interviewed some kids. Their kids are in their 20s, 3 of them, and they have 65 million in assets between them. And it was just such a treat to have them on the show. And what was interesting is every one of them was in a partnership where one of them was analytical and the other one was more outgoing. I'm just curious what your partnership is like.
Yeah. I would say that my partner, Vivek, he was my first friend when I came to America. And he used to pick me up, give rides. I have another one of my best friend who is also a partner in the company. He's more operations. So Vivek, he's great. Again, we were college roommates. We had our first jobs together. Then he went to the hedge fund industry. I came into private equity.
Oh, so both of you are analytical then. Okay.
Yeah, we're both analytical. But the thing is, in any partnership to survive or to do well or to flourish, you have to understand your roles. So I am very aggressive. I'm very operational minded. I'm on the cash flow side. And he's great at investor relation, raising capital. So that's how it works. And my other partner, Manish, who's good about, who's good about operations, who's good about day-to-day operation tasks, maintenance and headquarters. Another thing I would say
is, do you self-manage? Forgive me. I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you self-manage?
We self-manage. That's the decision we took on very early, Rod. After working with third parties for about 9 months, we said if the only way to succeed and the only way to progress is to have our own property management. That's the sister company, Carrier Property Management.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay.
And then I have my wife, Deepika, who, again, I've known her since middle school. She was a pretty played an integral part when we started this business. She was, a lot of times when you're taking a decision like that, I mean, look, 99.9% people can never have their own business because they're too scared about the paycheck security every 2 weeks.
Sure.
So people talk about doing a business, they never do. I was lucky enough to have a partner in my wife that encouraged me to take this leap of faith.
No, I love it. It's so critical. The most successful people on the planet have that support system. So your market area is it the whole state of Texas? Is it other states? What's your market area?
Yeah, so we started in Houston. We're about 20,000 units. I would say about 50% assets are in Houston. Then we have Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Laredo.
Okay.
And then we have assets in Nevada, Las Vegas, and Kansas City also.
Gotcha. Okay. And the component, just back to team for a minute. I'd love for my listeners who have no clue about, what's involved, and please don't be offended by that comment, those of you listening, but don't understand, the intricacies. And I do it a Facebook Live on this last night or the night before about team and like our capital team with the acquisition side, the asset management side, and the investor relations side. Can you speak to your team a little bit more? You talked about your partner, Vivek. Is it
Yes.
Vivek?
Vivek. Yes.
And your wife was involved, and then you had another partner doing operations. Yes. What is without the management side of it? What does the core nucleus look like? I'm just to get an idea. Components. It doesn't have to. Yeah, the components.
I'm very big on building a team. So
right.
The way we've divided our team here, Rod, is into 6 divisions.
Okay.
So we have asset management, we have operations, we have accounting, we have marketing, we have HR, and we have IT. Obviously, all these departments did not exist when we first started. And right. they have developed over the last 7 years, but and obviously I was playing a lot of these roles, which we have.
Sure, you were wearing a bunch of those hats for a long time, like any entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. So the way our org chart is set up is, we have your day-to-day eyes and ears to the ground, the regional supervisors, the on-site ground, personnel, maintenance, leasing agent managers. Then it rolls up into regional supervisors who all oversee about 2,000 units each. And then we have the vice president of operations, and we have the head of operations. And then we have asset management, which is like, kids that are from private equity, hedge fund, investment banking background, who's kind of, the white collar people who are kind of seeing the trends, looking at the models, looking at deciding, okay, how many renewals are coming up? What should be the rate? What should be a renewal percentage? All that stuff. They're kind of playing the quarterback with the operations team. And then we have the accounting team, which is, again, very key role. They're doing the monthly financials. They're reporting the K1s. They are the reporting to the investors who put all their money in our funds. And then we have marketing, which is, as we know, marketing today is very different than marketing 6 years ago. Everything is social media. Everything is Google, SEO. It never used to be the case in Class B and C space that when we started 7 years ago.
So you're talking about the marketing on your assets, correct? That's the marketing department. It's not investor relations marketing. No. It's really right. Gotcha. Absolutely. It's reputation management. It's marketing for rentals and
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, kind of as an aside. What have you virtualized in your operation? Because
everything.
Look at us today. We're stuck in our homes right now. So what have you done, and where are you going with that?
Yeah, it's so funny and ironic that I believe that for anyone to succeed, you have to have the technology aspect conquered. Yeah. Because without it, you're going to stay behind. You're going to get left behind. Yeah. So we have a separate technology department that have full-time software coders.
Wow.
And we have virtualized everything. Last year we took the decision where we stopped accepting payments at the property level. Whether it was a money order or was there a check, everything is online. People can go to any grocery stores. They have a resident number. They pay through e-money orders because 80% of our tenants do pay through money orders. Every resident has a login for their own. They can pay through credit cards. We have a resident portal and then virtual leasing. So people, even before the virus, people had the ability to launch an online application through our website. They can apply online. What we've added now is ability to do virtual leasing tours where we have, see how the floor plans look like. But basically everything, every aspect of our business is virtual now. I could work from home, even though I'm in office. I don't have to come to office. But again, it's a people's business, right? We have 20,000 families. They have issues. They have maintenance requests. They have many questions. So we decided we have to have the presence at the property level where the leasing office is open, but virtually for any payments or for any new leasing, it all can be done virtually.
Fantastic. Now, have you installed tech packages, the automatic door locking from your PDA or any of that stuff? Now, look, before you answer that question, what is your primary asset class? Are you in the BC market? What is that it?
Yeah, I would say 90% is workforce housing, Rod.
Workforce housing. Okay. So maybe not on the tech packages then.
Yeah, we try to we try to be wise or prudent about where we spend the money. You know, people talk about, I guess, you go to these conferences and people are like, what's the value add strategy? And people are talking about having the best pools and having the virtual, having these packages and the tech package. You know, for us in our tenant base, what I realized, and having grown up in the same apartment community for 10 years when I came to this country, I can tell you there's only three things that matters the most to these people. It's about cleanliness, safety. That's the most important thing for this tenant base. If you provide them with a clean, safe place to live, where they can feel safe about raising their families, that's what's the most important factor. So that's what we try to do at all of our communities.
Love it. Love it. So, let's talk for a minute about the elephant in the room, the fact that we're locked in our rooms.
Yes.
You know, how are you reacting to what's happening in the marketplace? And with workforce housing, I'm sure that you've had an impact on your collections. I think it's probably going to be more dramatic in May and June. But to talk about what's happening in your portfolio and then some of the proactive steps that I'm sure you're taking in this environment.
Yeah, you know, I think, Rod, you know, it's unfortunate that I don't think anybody could have envisioned being in a situation 6 weeks ago. So we all are kind of playing, you know, on the back foot and trying to figure out a way forward and how to be most proactive in the situation. So, you know, look, the first step I took was my allegiance is towards my 800 employees and my 20,000 families. Sure. So the first step I took, you know, 4 weeks ago was I promised to each one of my employees, all 800 of them, is that everybody will continue to get paid no matter what happens. Nice. So what we did is we continue to have the leasing office open, but we locked the doors so that nobody could come in. So at least we have some presence at the property level. Sure. And then we did 4-hour shifts so that people can only work 4 hours at a time. Nice. So we did that. So you wouldn't believe how many employees were so thankful and grateful just because they knew that they're going to continue to get paid. Second thing I did, Rod, last week was I went with the mayor of Houston. I was on TV and I announced a $4 million rental assistance fund, which is, so we have a nonprofit foundation called Karya Cares. So anybody who's lost their jobs, we will basically pay up to $1,000 in rent for them with proof that they have lost their jobs.
Good for you.
And I also announced $100,000 each to our Houston Police Department, fire department, and the sheriff department, because they are the frontline workers. And if they're not safe, then they're not going to be able to perform their services in the right manner. Wow. So I took that decision. I announced that. It was a great way to reward and say thanks to the frontline workers. In terms of our collection, Rod, I think we've been very fortunate this month so far. We have, I would say, collected on almost 93% of our rent. Yeah, almost 93%. And I think, you know, the stimulus checks are starting to come now. People are starting to get their $1,200 and unemployment benefits. I think for April, we will do well. We will probably, and it's so ironic to say that March was one of our best months ever. I mean, believe it or not. No, and we were hoping that April will be better, but with all this virus lockdown, we kind of braced ourselves to see, you know, we'll probably be okay. You know, so April, I think we will collect almost close to 100% of what we collected last month. In terms of the net operating income level, I would say we will do better because we've minimized a lot of the expenses. We shut down all the capital expenditures. We are being mindful of the work orders or the supplies we order. And I'm hoping that, you know, Texas is a big, you know, it's a wild card when it comes to property taxes because, you know, it's a non-disclosure state, and every year the county or the tax assessor comes out with the bills, and they're usually bumping the valuation quite a bit, which they have done this year again. So I'm hoping that there's some steps, because property taxes are a number one expense for any multifamily owner. Sure. And we are hoping that they take some steps where they cap the property taxes when it compared to the last year. That will help us quite a bit. But as you rightly said, we are all in anticipation of seeing what happens in May and June. I hope the economy is back open by then, or there's more stimulus plan. But look, we can only do what's in our control, Rod. So
no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. We can only control what we can control. All we can do is be proactive. And I'm sure you've got, you know, you're over communicating right now with your residents, correct? I mean, your team.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're trying to give them links to where they can apply for assistance if they don't qualify for the government programs. Or we are giving them links to where they can, Walmart or Amazon, they're hiring quite a bit. The pizza shops are hiring quite a bit.
Sure.
We're trying to help them in whatever capacity we can. We are trying to give employment. We are trying to take care of the residents, people who lost their jobs or paying for their rent. But look, we got to take a day at a time.
That's it.
I would say that as a multifamily owner operator, we are probably the safest asset class when it comes to preserving your capital. I mean, look, hotels, retails, malls, I mean, they're devastated.
They're in trouble. No question. There's going to be some. So let me ask you this. Obviously, opportunity is around the corner. There are a lot of skinny deals that were done the last few years, and this is going to be enough to push quite a few of them over the edge. A lot of businesses are going to fail. It's sad. It's very, very sad. I heard an interesting Jay Abraham, a brilliant marketer, say it's a time for ethical opportunism. And I thought that was integrity, but opportunity. And I thought that was a great phrase. But, are you anticipating getting into acquisition mode, within the year as things start to happen?
No, absolutely, Rod. We are already, I was, in a bittersweet way, I was thinking that this will bring a lot of opportunities. And we actually just tied up an asset earlier this week in San Antonio. It's about a $20 million acquisition. So look, we are being opportunistic. We are going to take advantage of the situation because we know when your neighbor starts calling you that, hey, he wants to buy an apartment complex, that the market is too overheated. People think it's too easy to do. I would tell you the hardest part of my job as a CEO and owner is cash flow management. Working capital. People underestimate how difficult is it to manage working capital because look, we're doing the CapEx, we're renovating these apartments. We have to spend the money first, and it takes about 30 to 60 days for the lender to fund that draw. And how do you manage that working capital? It really defines you. And I don't think people who got in this business over the last year, 2-3 years, realize the importance of the importance of that aspect. And I think some of those people will get in trouble. And for me, and our association, our fiduciary duty is to my investors. Sure. So there were instances in the past where a certain asset might not be performing well. In those cases, we deferred our own fees. We want to make sure the investors do get their distributions first, and investors will tend to remember those cases. So I think a lot of those things, as you said, there's going to be a lot of opportunities where people have got in the industry to later in the cycle and. But we'll be ready. We are ready now.
Love it. I'd like to go just for a few minutes to kind of a different direction. And, it's what you've accomplished is so incredible. And I'd like to get a little bit ethereal with you if you'll humor me for a moment. And that is, what do you think drives you? What's that pusher for you? I'd like you to share that with, I have a lot of aspiring investors that listen to my show, people that know they want to do this. They know they need to push through the fear and take action to actually make this happen for themselves. What drives you and what might you tell, two-part answer, what drives you and what might you tell those people that know they should get into this business? And, what words of wisdom do you have for them?
Yeah, I think, Rod, when somebody asks you what drives you, never say money, never say profit, because profit is always the end result of whatever you do. There needs to be a bigger purpose. My bigger purpose is how to improve people's life. I want to improve the living conditions of people's life. Now, that's my intent. That's my motivation. How I go about doing that, that's my business, right? So I'm trying to make sure the investors get rewarded for the money, the faith, the leap of faith they've taken by investing in my assets. And I want to make sure my tenants are living happily and peacefully. And then if profit comes as an end result of that, that's great. So that's my motivation. My motivation is how do I improve people's living conditions? And at the same time, I want to make sure investors make great amount of returns because that's their savings. So that's what really drives me.
Okay. So second part of the question. To those that are listening right now they can't even fathom 20,000 units, but what would you tell them about this business and how they might, what words of wisdom would you share with them?
Yeah, I think, it sounds like a big number and I was at 0 6 years ago.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah, I was at 0. So always have a big dream. Always say out your dreams out loud because it's from your mouth to God's ears. Always say your dreams out loud. This is what you want to be, but then go about doing it in the right highly integral way of integrity. And but that means is, okay, you buy 100 unit now, 100. Each number will continue to add up. And then sooner or later, if your track record is good, you will get a lot of funds. You have to put yourself in your position to be successful. Don't say that, okay, I'm going to win a lottery one day. Well, to win a lottery, you have to buy a lottery ticket first, right? So if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, put yourself in the position to become successful. And then if you become successful or not, leave that to your destiny. Because that's up to God. That's up to God if you're going to become successful. You can only do what's in your hands, like in the situation we're in. We can only do what's in our hands right now. If we will come out, if only 50% of people will pay rent next month or in June, that's not up to me. I can only put myself in a position to succeed. To anybody who's dreaming to be an entrepreneur, to be successful, put yourself in the best position possible to be successful, and then leave the rest to God.
No, I like it. I like it. And you put yourself in that position through education, through taking action, through aligning with the right people, with building your team, and all the above. Okay. The last question I want to ask you, and I'm so grateful for your time today. I know how incredibly busy you are, is if you were to tell, and I like to ask this question, but I'd really like to hear your answer. If you were going to tell your 20-year-old self something, knowing what you know now, what might you say and what might you do differently?
I would start taking the risk much earlier on in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Look, I'm relatively young compared to a lot of other entrepreneurs, but I would say we get in this habit of, we don't want to take risk in life. I mean, if you take educated risk, there's no downside to it. Even if you're unsuccessful in that particular venture, you will come out a smarter man. You'll come out a smarter woman on the other side of it. And you will learn a lot. Like my experience in Hong Kong and Asia, look, I did private equity, but the biggest thing that I gained from there is learning different cultures, is to see when you invest in somebody, you're investing in people, not in a particular. Any deal will look great on paper. If I present you a financial model or a PowerPoint presentation, I will not present you a deal that looks bad. Everything will look good that you see. Right. You're investing in people. You're going to look at the person's eyes. He's going to make me money. That's what I learned. More than the deal itself, it's about the people that you're investing in.
Oh, that's what I so sound. Yeah, that's so sound. Thank you for that. In fact, that added a ton of value to me personally. Well, listen, my friend, it's very much been a pleasure to meet you and a real treat to have you on my show. And I'm very, very grateful for your time today.
Thank you so much, Rod. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah.